man up. You can. So, from this point on, Tom Barrett and I will officiate meeting. So first of all, let's see if we can get this.
I know, really, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right, try it now. It's staying. All right, so the clicker's not working because now the whole PowerPoint is up with the slides over to the left-hand side and all that. So how do I get it so it's just the PowerPoint? Yes. Yeah. Is it turned on? Tom?
It was doing it before.
It's not on. Oh, it is on. Yes, it is on. It did. Try it again. Try it again. Oh, it's not moving. And the whole power. Yeah. And I'm on the whole PowerPoint is on that. Is that how it should be? It's not.
I have some little on this. I let them staying here. Just refer it to. Start here and then you go down. You can still make a turn.
Oh, this is crazy. It's not working.
What about the secret show?
This is really.
We went down here and we clicked on that button right there, start slideshow.
Yeah, we can. That we can. All right, we don't see any of it. We don't see you. We don't see the slides.
I saw it again.
Actually, now the power is back up on main. No, you guys, we can't see you guys.
Together.
She said she said on Zoom.
Yeah, I got it.
All right, now Tom is working. Now we just have to get you guys.
For a sec.
Do what?
Click right there.
Click where?
Oh, you have to image it on the screen, that one there. There you go. Are you doing that?
All right, so Tom is fine. Now, how do I get, I gotta get back to the Zoom. How do we get the Zoom page?
He's in it right there. You go. Yeah. Click up on that. It's slow.
I don't understand.
Why right there?
Go.
No, right there. It's years. No, this is next. Take that off.
Now it's not worth.
No, it's gonna work. Oh, there you go.
So we got a downside step to put that. All right, did you guys see the screen now? See it?
Let's just go. Can't stop.
But it says allow all participants to share screen, no? And how do I do that? Yeah. Multiple. Who can share? All participants?
They do this all the time.
Okay, so you're saying this is under share?
Well, why don't you just?
Yeah, right. So, okay, there we go. So hit the PowerPoint, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, what do I hit?
Let's go ahead. Meetings.
Sorry, red pen. I can.
When which you are. All right. And,
Right.
but direction.
Screen one, screen two, PowerPoint introduction. How's that? Then you, right there, maybe the PowerPoint.
Oh. The last, it's Bob dead. Doing all today.
All right, so you can see the screen.
I can see the screen.
Or then looking for the screen guy.
I think that's the best we can do with it.
It's perfect. Perfect. Hello, everybody. Tom Barron, start the darn meeting already.
Well, I'll get it started for you.
All right,
For my friend Bob Simon.
it's the hour.
Monday, you remember this phone?
Okay, we're good. We're done.
Don't let it take up too much of it. And for my mother, she rests in peace, who taught me two things. If it's worth doing it all, it's worth
That's
it.
what we can do for now.
And
Thanks.
life is a living, learning thing. Thank you. Thank you. Sure, man.
And, today's reader, Janet Schwartz. Thank you, Janet. And the four-way test, as usual. So, would somebody come up, I think Phil Brown would be good, Janet. He, Chilton, you need it for the four-way test.
Four-way test. Ding, say. True. Fair to all concerned. Will build goodwill and better friendships. Will be beneficial to all concerned.
Thank you. Pledge, we have the pledge for the day, Mark, so we'll song of the day, please.
People we stand to the song. And it's low favorite people out. And probably most of you watched the Olympics in Paris. And I noticed some of the French people wore certain hats, so I put one of the hats on. The Frenchman wore. Okay, shot.
And look, see, in the, next door over here. This is under new, finance chief bus service. Any good in Rotarians? Now, I know Bob Simon is gonna be part of our club with this Rotarian. Which club, Sam?
Steve Weaver from the Santa Monica Club is about it.
I think we have another one from the Sunrise.
Karen Greenberg, South Basic is District Rotary Foundation channels.
Welcome. Welcome. Let's see, so I don't have my readings.
Same word.
Saturday, August 17th, breakfast.
Do you like mine, Tom?
That's, that was, last week. Oh, stomach salad. Stomach salad.
What they put in your one?
Now, completely covered by those of 110, but you need your RSVP by August 6th. So, but I have a complete, RSVP today, it's still be accepted. Okay.
Right.
Wasn't the club buying a table or something?
No.
Well, I didn't know.
District, trade picnic. You know, that they're gonna send a torpedo away and on the beach. So we want to, attend that. Saturday, November 2nd, the district's, annual foundation gala, 12 noon to 4 p.m. at SoFi Stadium. That's a fun event. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other announcements? Oh, by the way, if you want to support the district breakfast, you're more than welcome to, they need a lot of hot water.
No, Tom.
not
That's the way on.
That's the picnic.
Yeah, that's
That's the big.
they need you to bring animal stuff, whether it's animal food for cats or dogs or snakes. Or hot dogs, or you can bring blankets, but they're asking you to bring a donation for pets. The hot dog is something we'll talk about at the meeting on, yeah, on Monday, we'll talk about the seaside flash on Monday.
Programs, Jay Blunt, so, here's students, in front of my class series. The sign is not good. Oh, look. Well, we know. My good friend John Key started out as a business career as a bond salesman. Humble, courteous, and friendly guy, but he recently admitted that he hates the stock market. Why? He said, gentlemen prefer bonds. Tom did admit to me, though, that he recently started investing heavily in penny stocks. The reasoning he asked, and he said, it just seemed to make a lot of sense. Not stopping there. Tom admitted to me that one of his clients made $1 million in the stock market. I asked, how did he end up doing that? John said, he started out asking $2 million. Look at that. And Steve, I said, what is the best way to make a small fortune in the stock market? The surest way, he said, start out with the big one. Knowing Steve's love history, I asked how did the stock market come into existence? Steve said, well, an economist, an accountant, and a lawyer decided to gamble. And gamble, and that's how the stock market was started. One of Steve's investment approach is to sit back and allow and let the stock market do its job. I asked him, how are the marijuana the stocks, sold on the market. He said, you buy high, you sell higher. Very funny. Steve read the stock market trader, stock kid. What happened? Steve replied. He shorted Tesla.
And very hard after bomb. Anyway, I'm delighted to be introducing Jay Barnes. And by the way, that's his name. Jay doesn't stand for anything. It stands for Jay Beard. That's his name. He's the senior vice president and private wealth advisor for Capital Group Private Client Services. He works directly with individuals and families to create customized plans for protecting, got that, and growing, that's important also. He also growing your wealth. He also helps nonprofit foundations and endowments. Prior to joining Capital in 2012, he was the managing director and head of equity research sales at the United Capital Group. Who the heck are they, by the way? Before that, he was the senior managing director and global head of research at Bear Stearns. We all remember that, didn't we? He went to over me. And also was part of the spiritual team of Sanford Bernstein. He earned a Master's of Science in Marketing from Fairleigh Dickinson University.
Sure.
And you know where that is? It's your favorite. You got it.
Campus.
He's the past chairman of the board of directors at Campbell Hall. Ever heard of Campbell Hall?
Yeah, it's cool.
Your kids went there?
Children going. Small coaches.
And he's a member of the Society of Trust and Estate Practitioners. Jay is based in the Los Angeles office. So they don't take for $100 Now a little bit about the Capital Group. Capital Group is an organization that I've been familiar with for over 50 years. Formerly as a client when I was a bond seller. So it's a little over before you learn about stocks. And now, currently, as a financial advisor for my wife Patty and I, to Capital Group Private Client Services. Capital Group was founded in 1931 by Jonathan Lovelace. There's still a Lovelace in the firm, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It has always been privately held and has been headquartered in Los Angeles since its founding. Capital Group is now the largest active manager of equity and fixed income asset with, anybody guess how much money they have under management?
Oh, there you
It's in the truth, 47 trillion. The billion is 1,000 billion mark. GE is the parent company of American Funds, family of open-end mutual funds and ETFs, generally offered to individual investors by financial advisors. The only business of Capital Group is investment management. That's all they do.
go. We didn't want to be my speaker.
Yeah.
That's right, my speakers.
Investment funds. Yeah. The investment process. It's done by fundamental research with regular visit companies. Their analysts visit companies. Well,
regular suppliers and industry regulators. Now, I just. And then, can you pay that? Stop. And I'm finished. We want. Year and year long. I still remain friends with many Capital Group people.
Mazel tov.
Now, please let them a Westwood Village Rotary welcome to Jay's Brilliant Fund.
It's that time of year.
My words associated with Capital Group. We'll take one minute. I think Capital Group, what is unknown about Capital Group publicly is the philanthropic culture that Capital Group has and has had since our beginning in 1931. In the past, we now have a Capital Group Foundation. It permits associates like me to request grants to charities that we care yearly about. It is not grants that are determined by a committee of the firm. It's really grants that are determined by the volunteerism and interest care that associates each have. And to give you an example, past 10 years, Capital Group Foundation has given away $340 million to charities located in the local facility. It's on the activities or the interest and engagement of associates. I want to add that because I think it's very special.
That's wonderful.
John asked me to speak today about passive versus active investing. It can be a hot topic from time to time. It's a hot topic when the stock market is going up. Every client I have wants to know why aren't I doing absolutely as well as the stock market or better, because that's what index funds are doing. And when the stock market goes down, clients I serve say, I'm glad I don't have all of my assets in an index fund. Is that the plummeting to the same rate that the stock market is. So I want to set that clear at the beginning. I've produced a couple of pages that are in front of each one of you.
Does everybody have a brochure?
You might take a look, please, at the first page. It says passive attributes on the left, active attributes on the right. I thought what I'd do was just sort of identify 5 attributes that each one of those investment styles possesses. Passive attributes include they are low cost. They are easy to access. If you have an account in E-Trade or Schwab or Fidelity, you can get any passive vehicle there is. They are all diversified tokens, which means that each one of the funds holds many different securities offered by many different companies or corporate bond issuers, for example. When you invest in the index fund, you are investing for complete participation in markets behavior. Market goes up, you're going to basically match the market's increase. Market goes down, you're basically going to match the decline in the market. And lastly, as the interest for individual investing has increased, most of these firms like E-Trade, Fidelity, and Schwab, et cetera, they offer model portfolio allocations for individual investors. If you're a young person, you might want to have all of your money in stocks, and you can do it cheaply with an index fund. If you're an older person who's going to begin to depend on income, you're going to want to change things up a bit, and the models that these firms offer can recommend ways to do that. Active attributes, those are on the right. Number one, you get a customized portfolio. So your circumstances, your family situation, your income situation, your desires and aspirations might be different than someone else. Active management permits a portfolio for your family and your objective to be customized. They can be very tax efficient. When you have separately managed securities in a portfolio, there is technical tax loss harvesting. So from time to time, you can recognize loss that offsets future gains from other holdings in the portfolio. It's a very efficient way to sort of keep more of the money able to compound over a longer period of time. They are opportunistic. Stock market goes up, stock market goes down, the index fund's gonna do, it's gonna replicate what's happening. When the stock market goes up, sometimes there are sectors of the stock market that don't do so well. While they might be very good economic sectors, they might have a very promising future. And an active manager who is fundamentally looking for opportunities like that can wait or begin to invest in a sector like that. There is risk adjustment. Risk adjustment happens because active managers, portfolio managers that are selecting securities have some kind of method about thinking about this. They have a temperament that's different than the stock market in general, so they can often deliver a better risk-adjusted return. Finally, get specialized advice, which means someone, a financial advisor who really takes the time to get to know you as a client, your objectives, the risks you're willing to take, the risks you really shouldn't take. That person can usually design a portfolio or a series of portfolios that are likely to meet the needs they have. I'll pause occasionally in case there's any question.
Is would that be a fee-based person, or would it be a, would they commission this person, this specialized advisor, would it be fee-based? Would that be based on the commission?
Generally, and it's fee-based. It used to always be a commission-based person. They're becoming rarer and rarer. So most financial advisors today are fee-based advisors. Some important considerations when you're considering active versus passive, or the combination of both, which is generally the way to go. What decisions are you going to make? What are you going to ask your advisor to make that really should be? Those active decisions are, how am I going to determine the goals that I have? And based on that, how am I going to determine how my portfolio should be allocated between stocks and bonds, between municipal bonds, corporate bonds, between international stocks and US stocks? That's an active decision. You might decide to populate your portfolio with nothing but passive index funds, but that decision at the beginning is an active decision that you or a counselor to you is going to make. Secondly, it's really important over time that once you've decided on the strategic allocation, the one that you are most confident is going to meet your objectives, that you periodically revisit it and rebalance. If you've made a decision to have so many bonds and so many stocks, and you know why that decision's been made, and you know what the probable outcome is from that decision, then rebalance it when it gets out of line. Sometimes stocks go up a lot more than bonds do. It's time to sell high and reinvest in that allocation that you determined actively at the beginning. And then finally, you do need, as an individual, you need to be able to assess the choices you have. One index fund doesn't necessarily mean it's exactly like another, because it may depend upon who the provider is, may depend upon how you access that fund, may depend upon the fees you're going to pay for that fund, its tax efficiency, and so forth. So the other active decision you have as an individual is, think about it, just research it a little bit. There's plenty of information out there, and do that before you proceed. Second page kind of looks like the first page. Depends. Homework assignments, so meetings.
Don't forget now.
Third page says market timing within cost. I put this in because the most important lesson we should all take away from here, and if it doesn't depend on you're going to invest passively only, actively only, or some combination is, you really can't market time successfully. So you really need to remain invested. You have to begin with a plan. You have to understand how that plan was informed, and you have to understand what that plan is likely to achieve. And once you do that, you stick through it. So if you look at this chart sort of carefully, if you had been invested for all 500 or 5,000 days, basically, in a 10-year period, 20-year period, all days. So that's through the great financial crisis, it's through the great debt crisis, it's through COVID, it's all kinds of turbulent and awful periods. Your rate of return in the S&P 500 will have been 9.7% over that period.
Per year.
You're on page 5.
Yes, page 5.
It's still page 4.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Sorry. Page 4. Thank you. Go to page 4. It basically says, left-hand side, you start with $50,000. You make an annual investment equal to that for 30 years. And it's only in cash because you're really concerned about the stock market or the economy, the political situation, whatever it is. It grows to $2 million. In the middle column, if you're like my friend Louis Loser, he only happens to invest on the day when the stock market's at its peak. He does better than the person who's just putting it in cash. Sideline Steve. And he winds up with $8.2 million. If you're Marty McFly, and you decide, I'm really good at trading, that's what I'm gonna make $50,000 investment. You wind up with $10.6 million. The odds of being Marty McFly are 0. The odds of being Louis the Loser are pretty darn good. So somewhere between that 8 million and that 10 million is where the average investor remaining invested in that. Thanks for bringing me back. That is good. Okay, so hopefully that sort of sets the stage for what's on page 1. I was just taking on page 5. I think that's right. That left is remain invested for all days, then, and you wind up with a 9.7% annualized return per year. If you go to the middle part of that column and say, it's 30 days of 5,000. And this is 1% of the days. You wind up with barely positive. And if you go all the way to the right, this is 5 best days. You actually end up with a negative. I think it's the biggest lesson that all individual investors should learn. Remain invested after you've developed an informed plan. On page 6, there was a lot of concern in the last 3 years as inflation rates ticked up. There was a lot of concern about what do I do with stocks? How can we possibly keep up with the rate of inflation? And should we do something dramatic to the portfolio because inflation is up here, the cost of living is going up? Will my returns keep pace? This chart says if you look at the shaded area that's around 70%, the chart basically says when inflation rates are 0 to as much as 6%, stocks are going to have positive returns 8 out of 10 years. It's only when inflation is less than 0, so it's in deflation, or it's when inflation persists at 6% or higher, where stocks don't have it. So most of the time, we're going to live in an inflation environment, 0 to 6%. That means most of the time, stocks annually are going to have a positive return. Another reinforcer for a plan for getting invested. This is true whether your portfolio is passively invested. It's true if it's only actively invested, or importantly, if it's a combination of the two. Yes.
And then market timing, if so hypothetically, you told your broker, I'm going to sell all my stocks and put me in cash right now for 30 days. You could have missed out on 4 or 5 opportunities to make money. So someone who misses these days, did they just de-invest and just be capped for that time period? Or
Yes, and then they also have other potentials. You sell and there's capital gains tax that you might have on the sale. So that's a negative return to your wealth when that happens. Then you have to make another decision. You have to make a decision when to get back in. So you're really asking yourself or your advisor for 2 decisions. When do I sell? When do I get back in? And how will I recover? This is the third question. How am I gonna recover the exit costs? I mean, how we use it?
And then what's your favorite client? Someone who's passively investing, or if they're more aggressive, if they're calling you today, buy this, buy this, rather than letting you decide what to do.
It'd be the latter. So when they're gonna hire the best kind of client that's gonna hire an advisor, is gonna investigate the advisor that they've hired. They're gonna have some confidence and faith in that advisor's resources, the judgment. They're gonna believe that the advisor has sat down and really understand what it is, what the purpose of that portfolio is to serve. And permit the advisor and the team that supports the advisor, the portfolio managers, the funds that support it, to do their job. Okay, page 7. Title says markets of power and geopolitical events. Another reinforcer of let's really invest in. And that's not just true in the United States. It's really true for around the world. Increasingly passive investments as well as active investments emphasize global diversification. You want to be invested in markets around the world because you never know which piston in the engine is going up and down. You want to have a team of resources behind it that can identify investments wherever they may be around the world. And again, you have to stay invested if you make a choice. So this chart takes you back to 1987, and you'll see Black Monday when the stock market in the United States went down 22% in one day. If you'd have bailed then, you would have missed all the other moves. That's right. You did have some fluctuation. Sometimes it was very painful, uncertain, scary, well present, but if you remained invested, you wound up at the top there on the right.
Question.
Yes.
Do you have any idea when the return is on this all country world index over this period of time?
It's not good. I also that's fair.
Obviously, it's not.
Yes. Page 8 is looking only at the US market, measured by the S&P 500. And it's trying to do something a little similar, but with less time involved. It started in 2007. It takes us through last year. So it starts just before the great financial crisis. Takes us through last year. Again, up and to the right. And if you look at the top box, it says time period. There are different time. So we've identified 3, 5, 10, and 15-year time periods. These are capsules of time. And you can see how different the annualized rates of return were for stocks in a passive index in certain periods. Yes.
So how do you decide, say you have a 30-year-old couple, and they're maybe more aggressive, you have a 65-year-old couple, probably less aggressive. You have 50 clients. How do you decide on a day-to-day basis what's the best move for each client? Do you have like alarms that go off and say this person needs to sell, this person needs to hold, this needs to buy? And how do you keep track of 50 different clients and their needs? You met with them and you got to know what they need. And how do you keep track of all that?
Fortunately, there's a lot of automation that's available to financial advisors these days. So for instance, if you've got a 30-year-old couple, and what you understand is that 30-year-old couple, they're both working, they both have a 401k plan, they're gonna have savings on the side. What they're really saving for is in 20 years, they'd like to be able to buy 7 homes. Portfolio management for them is gonna be constructed in a certain way. The automation that comes into play is that will often be notified. Time to rebalance. There's been a great period in either bonds or stocks. The portfolio's gotten a little bit out of whack. So it's sold. Would you like to? We think it's time to rebalance. If we do, we're going to go back on the plan. That gets you to the second home in the next 18 years. If we do it, there's going to be this kind of tax consequence. So if you want to consult with your advisor before we do it, please do. What we recommend, we proceed.
So you get notes from the computer telling you what you may need to do for each client.
Or from the computer, but also most advisors have a team support. In my case, there's 2 people that support me, and weekly we'll sit down and review the accounts that we steward. And are we aware of anything new? Is it something we should take care of, or is it something we should engage the client?
Hypothetical, it's probably not so hypothetical. Say someone bought 1,000 shares of NVIDIA 5 years ago. Okay, now it's split, except for one. And, it's got a huge, gain. What bothers me about advising a client is tax consequence. You're looking at, if you're a high earner, you're gonna pay at least approximately 30 to 35%, maybe closer to 35%. So in your own mind, are you going to discuss with the client, well, it's got to go down at least 35%, for you to justify selling it? Or do you say to yourself, it's had such a good run, we know it's gonna have a few bumps, but I'm confident that this is going to continue on into the future. And, this could be for someone younger, could be for someone older. And one other caveat to all this is that, we're not dying at 65 or 70. So someone who is 70 years old that could be sitting on this type of gain, it might make sense for them to just continue growing forward, having it in their portfolio. So what is your thinking on that?
There's a few questions that I would ask. Number one, are you philanthropically inclined? If so, then sourcing, renting, gifting shares of NVIDIA from your portfolio gets you a charitable deduction for the fair market value of the gift, and you don't pay the capital gains tax. It goes to the charity that does things. So the charity gets a whole bunch of money that you want them to have. You don't pay a capital gains tax, and you get a deduction. That's one thing. Secondly, there are a little more sophisticated things like a charitable or trust, if anyone's heard of that. You can make a contribution of appreciated assets. Could be stock, could be a home, could be other types of assets. Your attorney drafts a trust. The asset is a gift from you, so it's out of your estate and not subject to that tax. When it goes into the trust converts that asset into a diversified portfolio. And you get it.
What's that called?
It's called a charitable living trust. CRT.
Is it on here?
It's right there.
So you need a lawyer for that. You need one.
You do need a lawyer, but they're pretty standard, basic trust. It's not something that's necessarily complicated or sophisticated or something. But if you're working with an advisor or with your tax advisor or your attorney, a lot of these kinds of questions come up. Other thing I ask is, do you intend to make this to your family? You want to make this to your family, you should buy them a lawyer living instead of from your estate at the time. You can do it now. It gets the capital gain from your tax rate out of your estate, gives a gift to your family that they can utilize, and depending on their tax situation, it might not have as big a burden. Yes.
Same thing, one other comment too, it's not all of them decision.
Correct.
In other words, if you continue to lot in one stock that may be too much of that stock, you're in a more risky position with a huge gain in one stock and not in the others.
That's the tax loss harvesting part of this too. So to your point, if that security is one of several or many in the portfolio, you might ask your advisor, look through the portfolio, identify the securities that have unrealized losses, and let's offset some of this. And you begin to organically reduce the concentrated risk in one stock.
It's just in this type of market, there are a lot of gains out there.
There are. It's a real life problem or challenge.
Right.
Right.
And there could be very few, with any losses.
Correct. Yes.
Can you give an example of an unrealized loss?
Yes. You buy Apple at $1,000 a share, and the current market value is $700. That's an unrealized loss of $300.
But that was found by stock splitting, would that still be?
Stock splitting doesn't have anything to do with that, but the same division happens on a cost basis.
107.
Right. Yes.
Does your firm have a, let's say, a policy or, so we say directions, that's whatever, you have advisors, I guess, with various clients. Does your firm have a policy that allows politics to come into its management? In other words, we've just gone through a period of high inflation the last 3 years. That's a political thing. Political, because they're spending too much money, et cetera, like that. And, does that influence the investment decisions of your advisors within the firm? Do they take into consideration or not? Or
No. We do not. Yes. We have a view on what direction interest rates might be. We have a view of inflation is likely to persist. That's developed internally by the research part of it. So there's professional economists that make a view like that available. Doesn't mean that I have to believe in it or accept it. But it's part of a conversation you sometimes have with clients. Not political part of it, but here's a view on impact for industries. You know, there's certain industries that are going to benefit from different administrations, because different administrations are going to focus on needs. So it's up to us as active managers to try to identify what are those industries that may benefit, what risk is there to that industry, and it is a temporary beneficiary. What's given now might be taken away in the next administration. So we have to weigh all of that kind of stuff in. Yes.
I know this can't be said related to certainty because it's in control by one people, but is there any sense when the next major interest rate reduction is coming?
Major is a matter of definition. So there's a feeling that the Federal Reserve Board is going to initiate an interest rate to begin to ratchet interest rates down in September, because the inflation number that was just reported was accepted. If they do, we think it's a 25 basis point or 1/4 or 1% change. And we expect any future interest rate declines are going to be in a very modest incremental manner.
I know you have a lot to get through here, but pensions are kind of going out the window, even state employees, their pensions are going away, this recently hired. You take into consideration, who's going to have a good pension and what they should invest with whatever disposable income they have, versus, I mean, people have Social Security. To me, Social Security, what I've been told, it should be deserved. It should never be remaining. You take into consideration someone who's going to rely on Social Security and small investment, or somebody might have a pension and might to invest. How do you view that equation?
When we begin the planning process with a client, most advisors need the same thing. Begin the planning process with the client, identify sort of objective, purpose. If there's income coming in, you ask for other sources of income, including Social Security, pension benefits, required minimum distributions if you don't have it by that. So you could what is your age when you begin taking your required minimum distributions? Do you have an annuities? If there are other sources of income that we should factor in when we build a plan. I have a lot of clients these days who have life insurance policies. With life insurance policies have been in place for 30 or 40 years in some cases. There's a large amount of cash value in some things. That cash value can be accessed tax-free to distribution to the life insurance policy. So we talk to our clients about all these methods to understand, at least inform, here are options you have to consider. And if you do want to consider that, speak with your insurance advisor and understand what doing something like that may be.
What are some of the so what are some of the options that you take into consideration when your client and you discuss, like, my life insurance policy, or do I terminate it and take cash value? There are some aspects to it. I mean, one thing, you can pay down the life insurance policy, so you have no premium, there's tax component, could be a tax component on the or retirement of the life insurance policy, termination of the policy. What do you do when you're applying? How do you analyze it?
What we generally do is offer an observation that here's a potential source. Let's bring in your professional insurance advisor, because I'm not an insurance expert. And understanding enough to know that potentially helps us in certain situations. When that happens, we invite in the insurance advisor and say, here's what exists. Is it worth keeping? Is it worth using cash value loan? Is it worth surrendering? And that's when the informed decision happens for the. Okay, if you go to page 9. Here's one of the things about passive versus active. And I touched on it in the when you invest in a passive index fund, when you invest in only the S&P 500, you're really investing in fund without judgment as to valuation of stocks, and that fund is going to weight certain companies based on what every investor thinks. So if you look at this page, for example, it says weight of the top 5 stocks in the S&P 500 index. Look to the left first. Just for some perspective, in 1990, the 5 biggest stocks, as measured by market capitalization, were IBM, Exxon, GE, Philip Morris, and Royal Dutch Shell. The combined market capitalization, if you want to buy 100% of all 5 companies, it would have been equivalent to 12% of the entire value of the S&P 500. If you go to today, on the far right, the 5 companies with the largest market cap and concentration are Microsoft, NVIDIA, Apple, Alphabet, and buying 100% of those companies is the equivalent of 29% of the S&P 500. It's another way of saying if it's a seesaw, it's a little unbalanced, right? So if something goes wrong with NVIDIA, you could have a problem with getting the index. If you have an actively managed fund, your managers may have already factored in some risk in having a managed situation in a high quality company. But putting it to illustrate that loss of control, passive investing that you don't have with active. Another way to look at it is on page 10, and you can sort of see how different the United States is. United States is up blue line, and it says right now it's June 24, top 10 companies for 37% of the S&P 500. So 1/3 the entire market value of stocks traded in the United States is in 10 companies. If you look at the middle line where it says developed markets, the green one, that developed markets are big markets in Europe, etc. So these are Siemens and Novartis and companies you recognize. In that market, they're only 16% or about half as much. And then if you go all around the world and include everything in one big pile, the United States and developed markets, it's about 13%. It's just another way to depict how concentrated this US stock market is in only few companies. And that leads me to page 11, which is the sort of one of the arguments for global diversification. Here are the cumulative returns of what are now this magnificent set of both non-US companies domiciled outside the United States and companies inside the United States. January 22 on the left through basically June 24 on the right. I would not have guessed this when I first saw the chart, but the 7 biggest companies outside the United States did better than the 7 biggest inside the United States. So if you control just the S&P 500, yes, you would have done well, but you would have known, you had to know, I need to own a global index benefit would be other companies in here as well, or I should have owned just the global needs in order to do that.
That brings up an interesting point, though. Our Vanguard, or people over here in our club, the Vanguard, we have a bet about 62% invested in S&P 500. But the international Vanguard we follow is a less return than you're saying the top stocks internationally exceeded the returns of the top stocks domestically, right?
Yes, but I would have said here in January 22, I think that's going to be the outcome. What I would say is be globally diversified, take advantage of the fact that there are limited companies outside the United States. Novo Nordisk produces the same kind of diabetes drugs that Eli Lilly is. They're just as popular around the world. Novo Nordisk has a security, sells at about a third less valuation than Eli Lilly does. Probably because Novo Nordisk is in Denmark, and people think Europe could be in trouble because the Russians invaded Ukraine, etc. So they value Eli Lilly because that's your kind of Eli Lilly war because it's ordered into the accounts. Well, that all might be true, but the business of the two companies is relatively identical. The opportunity for the two companies is about identical, and one of those companies' securities is much more attractively priced. So that we see globally investing, not necessarily money. Am I doing on time?
You're about 1 minute.
Okay.
So are there any questions that, of Jay that we have that need to be answered or? We've only got about 2 minutes to go.
We pay all the time. If you say that, we pay all the time. Any more?
If anybody needs to leave to get the board, go ahead. And Jay was, a couple more minutes here. But, or maybe, remarks, yeah.
One final chart, just because it's that season. Final chart is number 15, red, white, and blue. There's a lot of anxiety about the presidential election, party wins, etc. This chart says since 1936, when Founders Fund began to sort of look at this data, it really doesn't matter very much. It's a Democratic administration or a Republican administration, as long as you remain invested, period. So to the extent you're anxious about things, you're going to remain invested, you don't need to be that anxious. That's it.
Or Democratic, either Democratic or.
Highly attractive.
Just one last question.
Yeah.
Well, that's good meeting. Yes.
Capital Group produces some podcasts called Capital Ideas. They're really fun to listen to. We recently had one of our senior portfolio managers from long-time equity who was talking about it. He calls it the end-to-end transition. It's natural gas to nuclear power. There is a resurgence, there will be a recovery in this country, demand for nuclear power. So it's the only form of power that's going to be able to keep our electric grid satisfied. Thank you very much.
The board decided to give you a balance share of the video.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
I would want to tell you one more thing. You get an idea from Mary Jane talk about the analysis that goes into what they do at CAPS. They really can talk and they really do. And when they analyze the video, they go with it. They don't know what group is. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Thank God she is back next week. Thank God she is back next week.
I'll guess you wish you from, and you need a poll list.